Hey guys, well, welcome to episode 2 of our Talk It Out conversations. Now, we hope that you've already jumped on, watched episode 1. Maybe you haven't, but you get a chance to do that. It's all there on our YouTube channel. But today, you're in for a treat because we're talking about faith, family, and finances, and I have called in a panel of experts. These guys are the best of the best. And so I want to welcome today our friends who are sitting around the living room with us. But first and foremost, I'll recognise this amazing couple. This is Gad and Melissa. Come on, give them a huge round of applause. Welcome, Gad and Melissa. Yes. Question, first and foremost, Gad and Melissa, how long have you guys been married?
It's not a trick question. 30 years.
30 years last month. No, March.
2 months ago.
30 years to, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really? 30 years of marriage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask you, was there like a favourite love song you guys had when you first started dating? You're like, that was our song? Did you have a song? Is there a song?
Come on, darling.
Come on, Melissa, what was it?
I don't think so.
Nothing?
No.
Wow. Okay, you need to think about a favourite. We're going to come back to you. You need a favourite song. I was thinking, I thought it was going to be something like Prince, Purple Rain, something like that.
AC/DC.
AC/DC, maybe. I know that's also good. All right. Also, on my right here, we have the amazing couple, Heather and Glenn. Good to have you here. Let's welcome them. Yes, Glenn and Heather. Okay, and you guys have been married for how long?
38 years.
38 years.
August, yeah.
What?
Wow.
What? Was it an arranged marriage? You get married at 12?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Not too
38.
far beyond.
Okay, so
I was only 18.
you're 18. How old?
We're childhood sweethearts.
Childhood sweethearts.
I was 21.
21 and 18. Let me ask you this: where did you guys meet? What was the first interaction of the young Glenn and Heather Starr? When was
Remember it very well.
Very well.
Heather came to band practice. And I'd already said to the guys, I was a year older, most of the guys to me, and I said, I'm first dibs on this girl. I don't want any competition.
Yes,
So,
bags
yeah,
done
there you
already.
go.
That is so good. Okay, so let me ask you this question: your love song. What was your love song? If you even have one now, is there a love song?
Yeah, maybe Carpenter's close to you.
What Carpenter's?
Yeah.
Can you?
Why do birds suddenly appear?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Just like...
Keep going, Glenn.
I can't.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a drummer, not a
Close
singer.
to you. Okay. Well, we can auto tune it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
All right. So, but now let me ask you guys then: would you have a love song now that you're like, I love this song. We listen to it together. It brings us closer.
It's sort of like when the kids were born are the songs that come to my mind, like
Maybe Barbra
Brown Eyed
Streisand.
Girl and
Brown-eyed girl, Barbra Streisand.
Evergreen.
yeah,
Oh,
Evergreen.
nice.
That was our
So
wedding
nice
song.
So you do have a
Yeah,
song.
no,
That's
no,
so
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Okay. Cool.
yeah.
Let me ask you this question. When you first met Heather, this is a bit of a trick question, everyone, because I want to know how good the memory of the men are on this 30 and 38 year of marriage. Okay, you first met Heather. What was she wearing?
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Were you? Do
He won't know that.
you remember what she was wearing? Because I'm not.
Clothes.
Well, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Okay, she was wearing clothes. That's good. Do you remember the outfit?
Oh, I think it was just jeans and a t-shirt, something like that.
Is that correct?
Probably. Yeah.
Oh, you don't remember?
Well, no, I don't remember either.
Oh, well, okay. Well,
I
what
remember
about?
what he had on.
Okay, what was that?
He had white jeans
White jeans.
and a jumper, black and cream jumper.
Look at you. You were very happy with yourself then. You're like, well, I might have been putting out the vibe. Okay. All right. Do you remember Gad? What was Melissa wearing the first
Well,
time?
firstly, you've got to ask where was
Yes.
the first time?
Where was the first time?
Herring Bar Inn.
Oh.
John Paul Young. So,
Yes.
because it was late at night, I do not remember a lot. Let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
So, no, I have no recollection of what I was wearing, she was wearing, or that much about the evening. But it was fun.
But it was great. It was.
I don't remember what I was wearing, which is
wow.
rare. 'cause
You guys, I thought there would have been some serious, okay, that's all right. See, I remember when I first met Alana, and again, given I haven't been married 30 years, but this year 18 years, that's pretty good.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
it is.
Underwhelming response, but that's fine. I do.
First 18 years of life.
Okay, so I did, but she had really tight brown curly hair, and she had a blue clip in her hair. I still remember the blue clip, and she had this was in the mid 90s, and she was wearing a blue turtleneck.
Ow, beautiful.
Did you say ow? Ow. She's going to regret that later. No, but anyway, it was very nice. Hey, so let's jump into the topics for today. So again, we wanted to cover faith, family, and finances. And I really have admired both of you guys and your approach to these topics, and really have seen you guys live these out, how you've lived your faith out and how you've led your family through faith, but even the finances, how you guys have handled your careers and your personal life in that area. But I want to start by talking about your marriages, if that's all right. I want to talk about a question that I think's really, there's a lot of people who are going to be watching this who are maybe new to marriage, or maybe they've been married for some time. And I think one of the biggest tensions in our world right now is relationship tension. People don't know how to do marriage well, usually because they've never seen it modelled well, I would say, or they haven't been taught how to do that well. Let me ask you this question. I'll start with you, Gad and Melissa. What has helped you keep a strong marriage? What do you think have been some of the foundations of keeping a strong marriage over these last 30 years?
I was just walking this morning and praying and whatever as I do, and I was thinking about how many conversations I've had with people that are struggling in their marriage at the moment with COVID-19. And I just thought, it's so easy to put the rock in front of your face and just focus on every little thing when you're just together all the time. And you've got to just remember that you've got to let things go, that you've got to forgive, and that what matters today probably won't matter tomorrow. And the other thing I was confronted with again this morning was my pride.
Wow.
And in that, I would think, well, he's in the wrong, or he would think I'm in the wrong and whatever, but it only takes one. It only takes one person to let it go and just say sorry or ask for forgiveness.
Wow.
And I think that's, been a real big thing for us because we're both very strong people. And we work together.
Right.
All day. We are at home together. So we had to learn those lessons pretty fast.
Yes.
And I just thought about it. Everybody at the moment trapped together is just focusing on the bad things that person is doing. And you just got to let it go. Just got to let it go.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So two things there, which are real brilliant, Melissa. I love that. So you're saying just be quick to let it go, but also quick to forgive, because we can let it go, but it's still hanging around. But forgiveness kind of cuts the cord, doesn't it? I said, no, I'm actually letting that go. Let me ask you this then, Gad, on your side of this, 30 years of marriage, you've obviously had some tensions. Yeah, obviously it's not a perfect marriage. There's no such thing. What has been some of the tips that you've applied to yourself personally to help journey through those times?
Yeah, I think what we've been blessed with is, or what we feel strongly about is association, is role models, mentors. Not that you're hanging out with people who've just got these beautiful marriages, but, if I end up having a bunch of mates who are separated and I just hang out with them on Friday nights at the pub, then I'm not necessarily going to get the right modelling. And so, we've got a lot of, great people in our life and mentors and role models. And so if you're hanging, we do quite a lot of stuff with other couples, whether it's dinners or, And so I think if you're doing that with, solid people who, are treading the same path, it helps, it helps.
Yeah.
And you can have a laugh about, what the guy did wrong or the woman did wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're
I love how you went with the guy went wrong first.
Yeah.
I love that. That was a good priority. I like that. It's usually the case.
That's
Let's
a
be
given,
honest.
That's a given, absolutely. And so I think just having the right people around you,
Yes.
and that association has made a big difference for us. for
Wow,
sure.
that's really big. So, Glenn and Heather, over to you then. 38 years of marriage. Okay, it's had its ups and downs, right? Bit of a roller coaster.
Yes.
As all relationships are. What have been some of the tips that help you guys stay strong? Like, what's been some strength elements there?
You go first, because I'll keep talking.
Good.
Well, I like him, so I think that really helps. If you're really good friends,
Yes.
I think that's a key thing. That if you he's my best friend.
Yes.
So I do like hanging out with him. So I think if you have fun together, you still go out and you can make each other laugh, and you just still, because in a marriage it's long term and you have children in there as well. But if you still make time for each other, and I think for us we even we had a large family, so it was hard to get babysitters. Nobody ever wanted to babysit 5 children. Not my 5 anyway. But so we used to have dinner at home together. So we kind of just made time for each other to spend with each other, didn't we?
Yeah, that's
and
good.
and we've just kept our friendship.
Yep.
Just and apart from that, I'd have to say Jesus.
Yeah.
I'd have to say just that's been a very central part of our relationship, is just seek first the kingdom of God. And so that's been very much a common ground in our life, that we love Jesus.
Yep.
And that's been he's been the central person.
Huge.
Yeah.
So people are watching this now and they're like, Jesus, some 2,000-year-old carpenter, I don't know much about him. But obviously most people are going to, I know of Jesus, I know of the faith. But what has, for you, Glenn, if Jesus has played a big part in keeping your marriage strong, why? Why do you think he's helped you to keep it strong?
Well, it's the foundation of our life. So, as I mentioned before, I was in a band and I was just going to play in a pub rock band and just do the music career thing.
Yeah.
But all along inside, I was searching, and on the sly, on private, I prayed to God, and I know the Spirit of God started, in my heart changing me, and that's the stage I met Heather. So as I was going through this, we actually started to go to church together, and then we committed our life to Jesus. So right early on, that has been a really foundational thing in our life. But at the same time, I always see my wife as my girlfriend. So I didn't want to sort of, I know she's my wife, but originally she's my girlfriend, and she's still my girlfriend. We go on dates, and we spend that time together really important. And as you guys said, I think conflict resolution skills are very important. I like to call arguments discussions.
High volume discussions, is that what we call
I
it?
try to keep cool. But I try to. I don't like arguments, so discussions are nicer because there's all sorts of disagreements with finances and hassles, and you've got to navigate through that and still come out the other end. And if you're still hanging on to stuff, you can't.
Short accounts.
You can't move on.
I love that. Short accounts. Keep short accounts.
Keep short accounts.
That's cool. Okay. So again, for you guys over here, I love that topic for a moment because I feel like conflict, it's inevitable, right? You're never going to avoid having conflict in any type of relationship, but especially in marriage. So I found a lot of people, and I know that for you, Gad and Melissa, you're always engaging with other people. You're very sociable, lovely people, loving on people, but I know you have a lot of encounters with even people who are in marriage and maybe they're having those struggles. What advice have you given them to help them deal with conflict? What has been some things you're like, these are things that have helped us, but these are also things we're giving to other people for helpful advice? What would that be?
I think what we always do when we sit down with people is, I always say 3 things that you like about each other. Because when you're grateful, you can't be anything else.
What are 3 things you like about Gad? I'm just curious.
You genuinely?
Let's go for it. Yeah. What are
We're
3
gonna
things
need
you like
hours,
about
James.
Gad?
We're
Yeah,
gonna
I said
need
3,
hours.
Gad. I know she's got a top 100 list prepared, but what are 3 things?
He leads our family. He is the rock of all our lives.
You do look like Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by the rock? That's what I was picking up. Okay.
He carries us all, and our kids and us, and we feel very safe. Very safe.
Yep.
And what was the question? What else?
You were like getting caught up in the moment. You started fanning yourself. He's like Dwayne Johnson. He's my rock. Okay, cool.
He makes, there's always fun in our life. He's always got good stuff organised for us to look forward to.
Great.
And whatever. And what I also love about him is sometimes it really annoys me, but he always puts people first. He will go out of his way to help somebody,
Awesome.
That he feels he can sow into and
Yep.
give wisdom to and whatever. He's probably not going to build your house, but he will give you wisdom. Wisdom.
I love that.
Beyond.
Yeah. And the reason why I put you on the spot there is because I think, some people are watching this and maybe they're going through conflict in their marriage. I think some people struggle to actually look for the positives in their
They
partner,
do.
especially when things aren't going well.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to. They want to look at like you mentioned before, there's things right in front of them, the negatives. So you've said to people pick just three things that you really like about that person. So that's one tip. What else have you given?
Share.
I would say being selfless, you know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to be like, it's about me and whatever. So, you know, if we do sit down with people, we'll just ask them, just put that person first, put their needs first, you know, be kind, you know, look for kind things to say, kind things to do, because the natural human instinct is the opposite. It's just like, you know, what about me? And I didn't, you know.
Yeah, eyes on self.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
and if people can start to do that, and sometimes there's hurt there, and it's you're not going to fix it in a little chat, you know what I
Yep.
mean? It's going to be a journey, but I think if all of us, if we learn to be more selfless and more focused on the other person's needs, that goes a long way for sure.
That's huge. Selfless. So again, that's some brilliant advice. I love that. Thank you, guys. I think just even going into this whole idea of family then. So you have, was it 37 kids?
Yeah.
5. No, sorry. Okay, so you got 5 kids on this side, 2 on this side. Okay, so you are, and you've got kids that are now all grown up. You've got kids that are all grown up, so you haven't got little kids anymore. So you have taken that journey of raising kids, and now they're now out of the nest, so to speak. Let's talk about that for a moment, okay? Because I feel like this is a big thing with how to raise kids, how to journey through the ups and downs of raising kids. Let me ask you this, Glenn and Heather. What has been something that's really helped you, you know, go through that parenting? Let's talk about the early parenting stage, like from when your kids, from those toddlers through to teenagers. What were some things that really helped you to not eat your young? Yeah, what was it?
Well, I think we didn't really know what we were doing, and the kids don't know that, so it's really good.
Yeah, right. They do. You're about to watch
kid
there.
was
Watching it right now.
I
Yeah.
vaguely remember we were loading was it our first child or second? Our
First
first
one.
child. So, you know, there's a kind of special entrance into Southern Hospital, like a U shape, you know, so we're loading the baby in, but it's not like they have a capsule, it was like a bassinet.
Yes.
And one of the handles dropped and the
She rolled
rolled out on the ground. I thought, no one's looking. Yeah, so put the baby back. So,
That is unreal.
anyway,
That is so.
so I guess.
And that's really helped your parenting, is it? Okay. Yeah.
No, well, okay, before we had children, we read a couple of Dr. James Dobson books,
Yeah.
Right.
and we tried to read up on how do you be good parents, you know, but with discipline and guidelines and stuff like that.
Let me pause it for a second then.
Yep.
Discipline. Okay, let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
I hate to interject. I know you're
Yeah.
we dropped a kid, we're moving forward, all these great stuff.
Yeah.
But let's stop for a second. Discipline, which obviously wasn't part of dropping kid wasn't the discipline part. That was an accident.
Yeah,
What was some of the discipline stuff that you guys put into place? Because I got to be honest with you, I think we live in a time now where the idea of discipline is very vague.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we discipline a kid? Do we put them in the corner? Do we chat to them? Do we, you know, man, I came from, the wooden spoon era. If you're out there watching this, that's what I came from, okay? And things have changed. And obviously there's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Absolutely, in how you discipline kids. What was something that helped you guys in the discipline side of raising kids?
I think, well, first up, I think you have to be a team, because children will find a way to undermine and go from one to the other. So you have to make sure you're
Yep.
always
Dad
a team.
said,
Doesn't work
Mum
with
said.
I'll come to Dad.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah, okay.
So, and I think also you got to back each other too. So you are each other's partner, because you know if one gets upset about something, you kind of got to go, okay, well, we'll talk about that later, not in front of the children, because you don't want, you know. So you got to stand united. And I think that's important. And I think discipline. We used to discipline our children with
With the wooden
spoon.
spoon. But back in the day, like, it's different nowadays, I imagine, a bit. But here's the thing. It was never if kids were clumsy or did dumb things. So
No.
kids do dumb things and stupid things. It was more if they knew for certain you don't do that and they did do it.
Yeah.
And it was a
Fine.
clear rule. Don't, you know, play football in the lounge room or whatever it was. And so, which they did actually. But it was more that kind of thing. And so, and more often than not, I could just give the look, or we just gave the look, and the kids would come straight back into
Yeah.
line. The
You
look.
just reach for the
I think
drawer
there's-
with a wooden spoon, give them a
Oh,
look, and they're like,
jiggle
oh,
it.
dear
I love
Jesus, I'm
just
out.
jiggle
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Jiggle it, yes. They just jiggle the drawer.
And also the kids are different too, because you know, some kids
Each
have
one is
are
different.
more hyperactive, more energetic, where some are just very compliant, just really good people. But if they got our DNA in them, you can see that come out
Sure.
in the
But I
generations.
think what I would also say is that when you discipline your children, you discipline them, but then you always talk to them afterwards.
Yes.
And then sit down with them, not just
Yep.
discipline them and then just go, you know, you leave it at that. We always then talk to them and said, do you understand what happened there? Do you understand why you needed to be, you know, smacked or whatever it was that we
Yes.
did?
Yep.
And then if you talk to them, and then we always prayed together with them as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I always said that this hurts me a lot more than it hurts you.
Yeah.
Nobody believed me.
That's great points. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So for you, Gad and Melissa, then, like, yeah, the discipline side, again, not a very popular word. Let's be
No.
honest.
We weren't
How
very
d-
good at it.
You weren't good at it.
No.
Why weren't you good at it? Tell us. Why do you feel like you weren't good at it?
We're suckers.
Yeah, they probably got away with more than they. Look, I would somewhere along my journey of life, I've learned or I've heard people say I'd rather people fall into line than pull them into line. So you know we lead people in our business, and so rarely do we want to pull people up and discipline them or say we heard this. We'd rather do it more gently. So probably we erred on that side
Yep.
a bit more. And so, who knows whether we got it right or not, but we definitely, there were times for sure where I lost it,
Yeah.
without a question.
Yeah.
With, particularly one of them.
I love it.
We
Yeah.
won't mention names. But
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
And they test you when they're going through teenage years, for sure. They're growing up, they're figuring it out, and the way you parent an 8-year-old to a 10-year-old to a 14-year-old is vastly different.
That was a
So-
big journey as well. We had to learn to parent differently. I think some people try to parent their teenagers like they're little kids still, and we had to
Wow.
grow with our kids.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
or we were going to lose,
Yeah.
you know, one in particular.
Yes.
I would chase that one in particular with a wooden spoon and whack him, but then we'd end up giggling and laughing. So
Yeah.
it never worked. Like it just never worked.
Right. But that's I love hearing and appreciate your honesty with all that as well, because it is different for everyone how they're going to discipline a kid, and there's not necessarily one style, is there? But the
No.
end result is, you know, even the Bible talks about, you know, you raise a child in the way they must go,
Yeah.
and part of that is discipline, and
Yeah.
and actually I think we sometimes, again, I'm very much still a rookie at this, and my oldest is 12 and my youngest twins are 8, and so we're still figuring out ourselves. But I think one of the biggest things I learned from my parents was actually, as much as you must discipline a kid, you need to even more so affirm a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing. And I think as parents, we've got to do that really well, huh?
Yeah.
Like, because it's one thing to say, this is wrong, but it's what, okay, candid story. Ready for this? Candid story. I came home, I was extremely high. Came home, I was 16 years old,
Right.
walked into my house, and my mum and dad looked at me and they said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "All you can eat Pizza Hut," which I had been because I was high. So I ended up, you know, all you
You're
could
hungry.
eat. Yeah, I was hungry, right? And I walked in my parents' Christian household, grew up in a Christian environment. But one of the most defining moments for me was actually my mum looking at me saying, I never heard my parents say I'm disappointed in you, never once. So, hey, no shame to people who have done that, by the way, but that was my parents, never said that. But what they did say to me that day, which I'll never forget, they said, "James, that's not who you are."
Yeah.
And I was like, shoot, because for so long they'd affirmed me in who I was,
Right.
that all they had to say was, "That's not who you are." And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're right. And that affirmation, which I think,
We
man,
love
if
you, but we don't love your behaviour.
exactly, yeah, we love you,
Yeah.
but we don't agree with what you're doing. Which I think, man, if Jesus needed affirmation, "This is my son, whom I'm well pleased." That was the first thing he heard from
Yeah,
his
that's
father,
true.
the day of his baptism.
Yeah.
Man, we need to give affirmation to
Yeah.
our children, right? Okay, so changing gears then. Okay, so we've got kids in the mix. We talked a little bit about discipline, some great
Get
stuff.
that
Love
one,
it,
that one.
love it. But let's talk about raising your kids now in a faith environment. Okay, so what I've again admired a lot about both of you guys is that you have led beautiful examples of Christ in the church, but also in your families. So how have you created a faith environment in your household? What did you do to create a healthy faith environment for your kids? Glenn and Heather, why don't you jump in there on that one?
Well, priority always went to church on a Sunday.
Yep.
Always.
And actually,
yeah.
back in the day,
Always.
it was morning, noon, and night.
Yeah.
and also lived that. Like, it wasn't like we were Christians on 2 hours on a Sunday service and then we were somebody different.
Right.
It was kind of like it's authentic. This is us. This is who we are. And also, we really encouraged the kids in their own faith and never expected, I guess, like, God has children. He doesn't have grandchildren. Mum and I are Christian, but you're going to have to make up your mind what you're going to believe. Like, you've got to make that decision yourself.
Yes.
We want you to make it, but we can't make it happen.
Yes.
So it was quite a more empowering them. And that's why when C3 was in Endeavour High, our last daughter was baptised. And that I was a mess. That was Chloe.
Yeah.
She was baptised,
Yeah.
and I because that was the fifth one that really got baptised and following Jesus.
Yes.
And I think that, look, who knows how it works, but I know we empowered the kids to really,
Wow.
And plus they were in really good youth groups. They had good. It was a good peer group thing, And they had like pastors' kids as good friends, which is a bit risky.
Yeah, can be a little risky. Let's be honest. Yep.
But it was good. They had a really cool bunch of Christians to hang out with and go surfing and ride their skateboards, and so that kept them out of a lot of mischief. But they could see a lot of positives. Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you about that then. So you said you wanted to empower your kids.
Yeah.
To have that. Tell me what that looks like, Heather. What practically does it look like to empower your kids in that faith area?
We lived Jesus in our life. So in every situation, they saw us reading our Bible, they saw us praying, they saw us in situations praying together if we weren't sure about things. And even Jared, not long ago, our eldest son, said to me, "You taught me that Jesus was a real person." So I think that Jesus wasn't just a religion that we followed or rules that we followed. We showed them that Jesus is real and you can have a relationship with him. So we empowered them by just living our own lives, but then we also said to them, this is what we believe, and we've raised you to believe that, but it still is your choice, what you want to do.
That.
And for our youngest one, Chloe, she, went her own way for a little while, and we just loved her and gave her that freedom to do
Didn't
whatever.
say anything, didn't hassle her, didn't,
Whatever, and then when the
yeah.
time was right, she, came back to church and started coming to church with us all. But we don't judge. We never judged anyone. You were free to be who you wanted to be, but there were certain values that we had in our home that you needed to respect while you lived under our roof.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think also the kids had a normal life. They went to, just a normal school.
Yeah.
They played football, they played soccer, netball. We went surfing together.
We always went to church on a Sunday, so as they got older...
We didn't go to Sunday sport.
We didn't go to Sunday
Yeah, right.
Poor Chloe. We didn't watch her play soccer on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that was one of the rules. If you play sport on a Sunday, we're not always going to be
Right.
there. Watch you.
But yeah, we did, and holidays and outings together as a family. We did that. We go bike ride or whatever. We just did it together as a family as well. So it was always something happening outside, which we did together. Yeah, I think the annual holiday was big, camping. Yeah. 2-3 weeks.
Well,
surfing.
we still do that now. It's been over 30 years.
Spending time with fam.
And we still
It's
have
the only
that
thing we
annual
can afford
holiday.
back in the day. $5 a night. What a bargain.
So, but I feel like just back on that point you mentioned earlier, I think that's going to be really refreshing for people who are watching this, because I feel there's maybe people who are watching this right now and they have had an experience with being raised in a faith household where it was like, you will do this and you have to, and if you break rules, then man, we're coming down hard on you, which I think, again, very refreshing, because at the end of the day, I love that point, Glenn, that God doesn't have grandchildren. In other words, this is personal. God has children. And you just want to encourage your kids, hey, we're going to love you. We're not going to judge you. We're praying for you, but we're hoping you find your own journey, and we're not going to judge you along the way. We're going to love you along the way.
That's important, because if they decided not to be Christian or anything else, I'd love them exactly the same.
Love that.
So there wasn't like the Christian ones are way more favoured than the other. It's like, it's not like that.
Yeah, we have different meal times, and the unsaved. Right? No, and that's huge. I think that's big. Let me ask you this, Gad. I feel like men, unfortunately, it might be a bit of a strong statement, maybe a little bit heavy-handed, I'm not too sure. But I feel like a lot of the time men in Christian settings are abdicating the role of leading their household in faith. I really have. I've sensed that around the place. There's a lot of men who are like, yeah, cool. When we get to church, eventually I might. And unfortunately, I feel like there's a big gap there for men leading their family in faith. You know, like Joshua says, as for me and my household, we're going to serve the Lord. Now, Melissa, you mentioned that already. Hey, Gad was a real rock in that. What would you say to men, fathers out there listening to this, watching this? What would you say to them to encourage them in being a leader of faith in their household? What would you say?
Yeah, I think step one is that it's an inside job. Like step one is you got to lead yourself before you can lead
Wow.
anybody else.
Yep.
And so, you know, you've got to get your own act together. Not perfection, but you know, getting better and working on yourself, and you know, just being more, you know, being more committed to your prayer life, or being more committed to reading the Bible, or you know, increasing that intimacy if you can with your personal relationship. And I'm convinced that as you do that, then you know God meets you and he empowers you, and he increases your capacity, and he gives you the ability to be more loving and to be more patient, and all the fruits of the Spirit. And so you just end up growing as a person, and then hopefully you grow as a father and a husband, and I just think it's about increasing your capacity. But you know, I mean, I don't think I've got a prayer of leading my household if I'm a mess, you know. So
Right.
it's just always that ongoing wanting to be, you know, a better person,
Yes.
and then hopefully that reflects in how you lead
Wow.
your family.
From the overflow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've always given God credit for every good thing in our life as well.
Yep.
So our children have known who, not this couple,
Yep.
because we are very human and make mega mistakes, but God is always there. I remember saying to both the kids, you know, I won't always be there, but God will always be
Yes.
Wow. Beautiful.
And, you know, I know both of them, their first go-to is to pray.
Yeah.
Love it.
No matter what is happening in life, pray first. I get the text, Mum, pray. Like, you know, it's not about trying to solution it or whatever, they're turning to God. So, yeah, it's a journey, and we make big mistakes in our life. But, yeah, I think the biggest thing is our children have known that no matter, they couldn't do enough wrong that we would stop loving them.
Yeah.
You know,
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
So
it's
big.
Still a journey.
It is. It always is.
Still a journey.
But I love hearing that as well. That, and I think that's, again, there's so many people watching this, and maybe that's their stage of life. They've got family, and they're making mistakes, and that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
like mistakes happen, life
Yeah.
happens, but it's what you do in that time. And I love hearing that you both said, no, we just kept going back to God. We keep putting Him in there. But I love that, even like you mentioned, Gad, that to have for men, I think that's really important. Just love God, like, and journey with Him in your own personal life, and from that overflow. Funny you should say that. So watching, you know, I grew up in a household where, Christian household, you know, and my parents loved the Lord, and one thing they never made me do is they never made me read my Bible. They never made me pray, never made me do any of that stuff. But what I did watch is them love it.
Yes. Yeah.
They loved reading the Bible. And I'd be watching Dad like, you right? You like? Well, first of all, I was fascinated that he liked reading, because I don't like. I'm like, is there a movie version? Okay, Passion hadn't come out yet. So, but the fact that I watched him fall in love with God and love God, which made me just, man, I got to check this out. I need to. So I think that's a real great point, Gad. Just personal example will lead your family there as well. Okay, so changing gears a little bit. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about faith, a little bit about family, finances. Okay, so as we film this, we are in the middle, maybe the tail end.
I haven't had anything for 6 weeks.
Of a pandemic, you know, that's really rocked our world and financially rocked our world. And I think, again, this is a topic I feel we need to speak into, is the financial topic. Giving godly advice to these seasons. How do we navigate this? How do we journey through finances and the stresses of that? I know for both of you guys, you know, again, there's been ups and downs in these areas of finances, but you've been able to navigate it, and definitely your faith has played a part in how you've handled your finances. Let me start with you, Gad and Melissa. What do you feel has really helped you, journey through the ups and downs of financial struggles. What has been a real helping few tips or things that you've done that have helped you navigate the ups and downs of financial pressures in your personal worlds?
The first thing I'd probably say is try to not worry, because when there is financial pressure, then worry steps in.
Yes.
And I heard Rick Warren say at a Hillsong conference once, you can't worry and worship at the same time.
Wow.
And so he actually was really strong in his message, and he said worry is a sin. Like, it's literally, and I was convicted by that. I was just like, wow, like if I'm worrying, then I'm not I'm not, as close to God as I need to be. And so I would just, when the worry would step in, and it's going to step in when there's pressure and business is up and down and blah blah blah, and you just have to hand it over. And I wonder how people who don't have a faith, how do they get through some of those financial pressures? Because you can just tell them not to worry, but they've got no one to hand it over to.
Yep.
And at least we can say, God, this is out of my realm of understanding or possibility. I'm handing it over to you. Take control. So just
And
that
God
one.
has covered us. Like, we have had moments where we've lost a lot of money, investments, stuff, heavy stuff. We've had more than we probably should have. But God brings you to your knees, and you realise, I remember him coming home, and we had a financial, like a court case, that some investment, we thought we were going to get our money back, and we lost the court case. And he came home and he was just wrecked, like sick to the stomach. And I was able to say, I have you, we have our 2 kids, I can live in a tent, we don't need whatever. But we sat down and we read Deuteronomy 8. Everything's from him, and he brings it back. We have so many rocks of remembrance in our life where God has brought us to his knees and taught us things that we needed to know. Maybe money was a bit of an idol in our life, or we were focusing on the wrong thing, but I look at how good he is. He's so faithful.
Yeah.
And you trust him.
I read something the other day about how would you live how should you live if you knew you had cancer and you knew you'd been given a death sentence, for 12 months.
Yep.
So Melissa had breast cancer a bunch of years ago, and through the toughest times.
All good, mate. Yeah.
So whether it's health or finance or whatever, those toughest times are actually your most
Growing.
Intimate.
the most
Yeah.
rewarding times
Yeah.
in your faith journey, because
Yes.
you have to be reliant on God.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
And that's, I believe that's where he wants us to be. That's where we're most vulnerable, and
Beautiful. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's a big, like, if you don't mind for a moment there, that's a pretty big journey to go through a cancer battle.
Yeah.
Okay, and you obviously learnt a lot about each other in that time. You learnt a lot about God. What do you think was an anchor point in that season for you guys?
God had done a lot, because I was a very fear-filled person. And I had journeyed, he'd had me flat on the floor with his knee on my back. God, I'm talking about.
Yes, good.
He doesn't
Yeah,
really-
you didn't mention that in the discipline side of the topic. Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah,
disciplining your
it
wife,
was.
was it?
But
No.
anyway, yeah. Just to deal with stuff that I had a lot of fear with. So when I got breast cancer, there was a doctor that was a Christian, and we went to a Mexico clinic. We had, there was just so many things that he just put in my path, that somebody said to me, oh, she's dancing in the daisies. And I was.
Yeah.
I was so joy-filled because I had him. I think for a control freak, it was harder for him. But, God carried him, and he had to be strong for me, and
Wow.
whatever. And it was the kids. We were overseas when I got diagnosed, so the kids were back here, and I just didn't want them to find out. But even to this day, we never shared. We didn't want them to carry that burden
Right.
much.
Right.
You know, so I'm 7 years.
Yeah, well, so good.
Well
But it's
done.
beautiful to see, and and I thought, I know it's a little off topic from the finances, but I think that those tension moments, you know, in our lives, and obviously very big ones, and how you navigated that, and how your faith was a real big anchor, which I think is so encouraging for people to listen to. And I think it's interesting as well to you mentioned, Gad, like it really does. We have a lot of financial pressures in the world today, but I think it's because we have a lot of expectation pressures, and the expectation pressures are fueling the financial. Oh, I've got to have a house by this time, and
Yes.
I've got to have this type of clothes, and I've
Immediate.
got to have instant gratification. But it's also fueling, isn't it? This need for
Yeah.
stuff, which
Yeah.
then creates a financial pressure.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting you put that into perspective and go, well, do I really need what really matters?
Yeah.
Which is true, isn't it? This time's done that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Where people are like, you know, all my work's kind of dried up a little bit. Man, I'm spending more time with my family,
Yeah.
and I've never felt
Yes.
more joyful.
Right.
So it's amazing. Again, just for those who are watching, I don't believe God causes these things, but He
No.
uses them,
Yeah.
He does.
and He's used this time to really help people
Yeah.
recalibrate priorities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you this, Glenn and Heather. You again have had some ups and downs financially, navigated that. What's been the secret sauce to going through those financial pressures?
Well, I guess early on, probably about 2 years into our marriage, I became a full-time scripture teacher, which was not a very good career choice if you want
Look,
to make money.
look, it's not the most lucrative business. No, I get
Rolling
that.
in the dough, those scripture
rolling
teachers.
in the
Yeah.
dough.
So I guess straight up, we always were depending on God. You know, we'd do whatever work I could in between, but you know, full-time ministry, it's not great pay. But I don't even know how it works. But it's kind of like it's so cliche. It's like you trust God and it just happens. But we did everything that we could possibly humanly do to enable us to do that ministry, that work. And so it was kind of like, I don't know, God just blessed us, enabled us. And that was for 30 plus years. And that was difficult because I was entrepreneurial. I had my first business in 5th class. Okay.
Wow.
In high school, I had a couple of things. How I had a lawn mowing business, and like it was all happening. So when I became a Christian, I decided not to put the dollars first
Wow.
or the money, because it was all about a car and a new drum kit, and, like stuff.
Yeah.
And now it was like, wow, we're put God's ways first and what He wants, and all of my life and Heather's life and our life, it's God's. It's all His. So what are we going to do? In some ways, the pressure's off, because when you have, as you said, an expectation to have this kind of thing or that kind of the latest pram or whatever it is, you can't afford it. We didn't have it when we first got married. We seriously had no money.
Yeah.
Well, like I don't even know what we were doing. We were like, our first lounge, someone was on someone's, I can't put it out in their council cleanup.
Yes,
We
so
called it
good.
the torture lounge. It was like terrible to sit on. We never had it. Like we had
18
nothing.
and
But
21.
you know what?
Yeah.
They were the fondest memories.
Yeah, wow.
Which is such in contrast to the lie that if you have all this stuff, you'll somehow be more content and
Yeah.
more happy.
Yeah.
We had a really ordinary vehicle
Yeah.
that leaked oil. We had, and we were in love, and it was great. So it's
Yeah.
good. But moving on, I think some of the challenging times are sometimes, you know, when you've had money and then it evaporates, it's lost. And probably most of our arguments have been over the years about financial in nature.
Yeah,
I think
Wow.
that is the biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we normally don't. That'd be it.
Yeah. Well, that's it, because that's right now, recent studies have showed the number one cause of relationship breakdown
Yeah.
is financial pressure.
Yeah.
And then the second one is communication. It used to be communication, but now there's so much pressure for that. So you've had the ups and downs, right? You're saying that. But again, what if someone's watching this now and they're going through financial pressure, which a lot of people could be, because a lot of people's work has they've dried up. You guys included. Your business has been
Yes.
put to a pause
Zero.
for a moment because of the nature of it, and so you're now really in a very God-dependent season.
Right.
But people who are watching this now, what would you say to them if they're in the same boat as you are? What's helping you through this?
Well, I will admit that I did struggle when it first happened.
I was trying to keep cool, but
I did. I found it really hard because I thought we've always lived a very faith-filled, and we trusted God. And one of the things Glenn has always had in our marriage is that your finances should be like we believe
Flow.
should be like, they flow like a river. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, goes out, and you just bless people that are around you.
Wow.
And we have always lived that. So to actually get to our age, so to speak, and then to have your finances actually cut, like there's nothing coming in. I struggled with that. I really had to get myself, because I thought, how does that happen? I've worked hard all these years. We've done the right thing. We've helped people, and just like that, my finances stop. And I really had to bring myself back to some basics and just say, okay, God, I just have to remind myself, because I think one of the things I would say that when you get to our age, you perhaps are a little more self-sufficient because you've done a lot of the hard years in some ways, and we don't have children as dependents anymore.
Right.
So you kind of can be a little bit self-sufficient in a way. And so when that goes, you're like, okay, wow, there's no income. How are we going to manage this?
the bill's still coming in.
Yeah.
Still
Still
come
come in.
We employ people, so we've still got to pay them as well, and want to do that. So yeah, it just brought it back to just reminding myself, okay, God, you are in control. You are the anchor in this. You know exactly what's going on, and not to sort of worry or panic. And one of the scriptures that I've always lived by is Proverbs 3:5, which is, not to lean on your own, trust in the Lord with everything you do, and not lean on your own understanding, but commit your ways to Him, and He will direct your paths. And that's something that I've always lived by, and so it kind of challenged me again, which to go back and do you still trust that, Heather?
We had a discussion about this.
Yeah.
Not an argument. And
Yes, the discussion.
and because there's things outside your control.
Yes,
I
it's
cannot
against
control. I didn't see this. I didn't know this.
No.
Actually, I said to Heather, it was funny. New Year's Eve, we had a blackout where we were because there was fires down the south coast, and I was looking back. How weird
We're
has
in
this year been?
darkness.
We were in darkness.
Yeah.
We were struggling
As
to get a
a
little
year.
birthday cake candle. That was our light cutter.
Yeah.
And
was interesting.
so I said to Heather, we can't control these things, but what we can control, we'll do. We can only do best with the cards we're dealt, so to speak.
Yeah,
So,
I love that.
And we got together, got in one accord, and held hands, prayed, and went, okay, we're going to just do the best we
love
can
it.
with what we've got. We
Yes.
can't look at all the
But
negative.
I've always been reminded too how the Apostle Paul said he was content with much, and he's been content with less.
Yep.
And I have lived that
I
in
love
my
that.
life.
Yes.
It's been down to our, I don't know
Zero.
how I'm going to
Minus.
pay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't even know. I've had to put food back. Like you're standing there and you haven't got enough money to pay.
Yeah.
And that's, and you had to go, okay, guys, we can't have that. And that's not been easy to do. And we have had times with that. But I've learnt to be content,
Yes.
or I've been challenged to be content with much and be content with less.
I love that.
And I do think life, there's ups and downs. Who
Yeah.
would have thought this would happen?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you've always got to, I guess, be ready to go, okay, are
Yep.
you still content? Can you still get up each day and choose to have a good attitude
Yes.
and to trust God and be positive and go, okay, it will be all right.
Yeah, I love that.
God will get us through this.
It's funny. I think it's really important to, for people watching along. I think there has been, when it comes to God and finances, there's that stigma of like, if you give to God, He's going to bless you and everything's taken care of for the rest of your life. But it's not true. There are going to be
not
ups and
necessarily.
it's not going to be there's going to be ups and downs,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so people think God's this vending machine in the sky where I'm going to give and going to get back. But yet, I love it. As you mentioned to Paul, Paul says, I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I can do all things through Christ who
Yes.
strengthens me.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which is so huge. But I love that. I think it really does bring a bit of a clarity to the fact that, hey, it doesn't mean God's not God when they're difficult times, but also doesn't mean His blessing isn't honest.
No.
Yeah.
Just
No.
because it's,
Yeah.
we always put blessing into a category. Oh, it's a full bank account.
No.
A bank, it's material possessions, but man, we still have access to so many beautiful things that the world can't buy, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
peace
Yeah.
Yes.
and joy
Yes.
and all these things that
Despite
God gives
whatever.
us, even when we're in need or when we're in plenty,
Yeah.
because those things, they can't affect our joy. That's the beautiful part. And I
Yeah.
think that is the ultimate blessing of putting your trust in God, is because that was Paul's revelation. I've had it all, been up the top, been in the bottom, and I've got a joy at both ends.
Can't take it away.
You can't take it away, and I love it, and I think that's part of the blessing. But I think you mentioned that. And I want to jump into this for a moment. Even I love that terminology. I felt like it was a flow, it was a river,
Yes.
Yeah.
where I get stuff and I give, and that's how
Yes.
it's meant to be.
Yes.
What do you think that actually looks like?
Okay. Well, we've always been part of a local church, and we've always made it a priority to give to the ministry, and usually that, like people call it tithing, but 10% or an offering. We've always just agreed together and contributed there. But that's just the start. There's needs around us. There's neighbours, and there's all sorts of things. And sometimes it comes right to your front door, and what are you going to do? I remember one kid, I was teaching scripture, and this year 10 student came to faith. And he then soon after ended up being without a place to live. And I was asking people in the church, hey, you want to have Robbie live with you? And it ended up, we took Robbie in our house.
Wow.
Jared moved out of his bedroom, so we've got 5 kids. Now we've got the 6th one.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this. He lived with us for 6 months and then went back to New Zealand. And it was a massive thing in his life. It really, it was a big thing. But my son gave up his bedroom.
Love that.
And he talks about it now. He loved that time. It was like a bigger brother.
Yes.
And so it was kind of, so it's that kind of thing. It's kind of like there's things that come along, and it's kind of like, well, if we can help or what we can do, we'll try to do. And sometimes we can't afford it. But I don't.
And there has been times where you're kind of looking, going, we can't really afford this, but you kind of go, but you can. You can afford it, because it is something that, a principle that we've always had, that yes, we commit our tithes or our certain amount to supporting the local church, which we've always done. But then there is that over and above, that when God does bring someone along your path, if you sort of try to hold on to your money and your purse strings,
Just give
and
It's funny.
it just doesn't work.
Yep.
You're best to just let it go and trust God,
Be a
because you
blessing.
can't outgive God.
Wow.
Can't outgive God.
We give to the Salvation Army a bit. I know Heather.
Dear.
Every
I
time she
made this-
sees the person.
No. I made a commitment, because there was a time where we did lose quite a bit of money, and anyway, and we got through that, and the Salvation Army, we had a bit to do with them at the time, and so I made that commitment to God. I said, whenever I see the Salvation Army, whatever is the largest note in my purse,
Wow.
I will hand it over. Well, you know what? They're at Miranda Fair all the time. They're out.
Right next to the ATM.
No, it's yourself. I said, I will not give Heather $100 bills anymore.
So good.
I go, really? You're back here again today?
That's so awesome. But good on you for, trusting God and being generous.
Yes.
And like you said, you can't outgive God. He's always going to bless you.
They're probably the only ones that take cash at the
I
moment.
know.
Yeah.
I think they get excited when
Yeah,
they see
right.
me now.
So start to land the plane here. I think as far as financial freedom goes, Gad and Melissa, let me ask you this. I do feel like there's a lot of people who aren't living in, a freedom in that area. They feel very bound, or they feel very stressed or pressured by this topic of finances. As we've heard already, one of the biggest causes of, relationship breakdowns is that financial pressure. What advice would you give someone who, is in that place to help them move into a place of freedom financially?
I might just make a couple of comments. When you're a parent, obviously you want to do whatever you can for your kids. Like, you want to bless them, you want to help them, support them. I mean, if they were in need financially,
Yeah.
you're just going to, of course, you know what I mean, as long as it's for the right things.
Yes,
or
yep.
whatever. And so I've always just tried to, understand that relationship with God as well. So if I ask for something, and it says to ask, firstly you've got to have the relationship with God in the first place. But then if he's your father and you ask him for something, he's not going to deny that under any circumstance, and he can bless you. And so again, it comes back to that worry thing, or you have financial freedom if he's your dad. So dad, you know what I mean? Can you, I'm doing it tough here.
Yeah.
Can you help me, or can you, just give me some clarity, or, just that submission of prayer, and just saying to God, my finances, I don't want to be in control here. I want you to be in control. And from our experience, he's always just He's never failed us.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow. So good. Love that.
And it can be a big hold on your life. Money.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of people wouldn't even realise that maybe money's here and God's here.
Yeah.
A lot. And if you look out, God will work on
Yep.
you. So, but you
Yeah.
know, like it's really keeping that, God first.
Yes.
And what's really important in your life, and then He releases. You
Yep.
know, it's
I think it's true, and as we finish up, I think it's really important because a lot of people I chat to the most who have financial pressure are people who typically aren't very generous,
Yes.
or people who do
Yeah,
not have,
that's true.
they do not put God first in their finances. And it's not because God's like, well, I'm withholding peace. No. It's just that you haven't trusted God, so therefore the trust falls on you,
Yeah.
or the responsibility falls on you, and that's where that unrest comes from. Because man, I've got to handle this. Whereas I love it if we see God as the Father. Then God, you said seek first. We mentioned that already.
Yeah.
God, you're first in this area of my life, and the byproduct of putting God first, in my opinion and my experience, has just been peace.
Yeah.
Okay, God, well, you're first.
Yep.
This is your problem.
Yep.
Like if I put you first, the domino effect of this is that all these other things will be added unto me. So it's in your hands now. I'm going to trust you with that because you're first. Well, guys, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and opening up. And I know this, it's not easy talking about the ups and downs of life, but I think there was so much gold in there. And I just want to encourage everyone who is watching this, wherever you're watching this, share it with other people. If you know anyone who's going through maybe faith struggles, family or finances, this would be a great episode for them to get a hold of. And hey, underneath this, we have a comment section. Put as many comments as you want, and maybe even other topics that you would love for us to cover. We want to really not give you just our opinion, but give you, I guess, what the Bible says about really big life issues. So thank you so much for joining, and we can't wait to see you for the next episode of Talk It Out.